I was lucky because I arrived in Gay Lib at the third meeting, which was in the London School of Economics, in a basement classroom there. And I was just immediately struck by all these young queens and lesbians, all very sort of hippie or alternative sort of society kind of people, and the kind of people I'd never seen in any of the gay bars at all. So, and the way they talked about our position as homosexuals, relating it to a class position and to a position of being exploited, and linking it up with the economy and all these different things, and ways of talking about gayness that I'd never crossed my mind or never ever come across before. And it all sort of began to make sense, and people would talk about the way they were, the way they behaved at work to sort of hide their gayness, and that immediately struck a chord with me, because in my first job as an sort of apprentice engineer, I was spotted by the apprentices one afternoon or one lunchtime, looking at all the newspapers, with a whole collection of newspapers surrounding me and my boyfriend in this park, and we'd got them because it was the publishing of the Wolfenden committee, and we wanted to know if they were going to change, the law, and if they were going to reduce the age of consent as well, because I was 17 and he was 19, I think, at the time, so it was a real interest to us. And so they saw that and they put two and two together, so by the time I got back to the factory it was all over. The news was all around the factory. I could really appreciate, after that I used to work in offices and things, it seemed kind of much safe sort of thing, because I could see I wasn't going to get any further in the factory, and of course everybody was all sending me up, and wolf whistles and so on, and a really nasty jock type sportsman foreman. So I had enough of that. I never wanted to be there in the first place anyway. All these things that people said at this meeting was really interesting to me, and so I went back the following week, and then I just became hooked. I just met all these people with these different ideas, so one became more involved. And then I became part, when the Marxists wanted to form all these different function groups, and one of them was a street theatre group, and so I'd been in amateur dramatics, so I thought, well, street theatre, I think I know what that is, it sounds interesting, so I joined the street theatre group, and that led from one thing to another, and to suddenly performing in drag, and then beginning to see drag as a better alternative to just wearing a GLF badge which said, Gay Liberation Front. So that when people would ask you what's GLF, they would say, and you'd be explaining about an organisation and standing up for your rights and all that kind of thing. And it wasn't in any way personal, but as soon as you put on drag, it was immediately personal, and people wanted to know why you were wearing drag and who did you think you were, and it was all down to the short and curlies very quickly. So that, to me, was interesting. It was powerful. And then drag started to cause a consternation inside the movement as well. It was very sort of weird, complex attitude that people had towards it. So that kind of gave me an inkling that, you know, things were moving in the right direction, really. Because it meant that people had to start questioning their, you know, their sexist attitudes and their male pride and their concept of masculinity. Yeah, and then other people started getting into drag as well, and suddenly there was a whole lot of us in drag. And then we became a force within the movement, and that made the Marxists even more unhappy.